Okay, the next item of business is portfolio questions. The portfolio on this occasion is education and skills. I'd remind members that questions 2 and 7 have been grouped, and therefore I'll take any supplementaries on those questions after the substantive questions have been asked and answered. Just a reminder that there is quite a bit of interest in supplementaries, so the usual plea for brevity in both questions and answers stands. With that, I call question number 1, Gordon MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how much it has invested in education infrastructure since 2011.
Cabinet Secretary Jenny Goldruth.
The Scottish Government recognises the importance of education infrastructure as a foundation for delivering high-quality learning environments, supporting well-being and also enabling long-term economic and social benefits. That is why, since 2011, we have invested significant funding of £2.8 billion in Scotland's education estate. This investment has led to the proportion of schools in a good or satisfactory condition increasing from 62.7% in 2007 to a record 92% today. Our funding through the Learning Estate and Investment Programme is helping to build on this remarkable progress.
MacDonald.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer and welcome the opening of the new state-of-the-art Curry Community High School, which opened at the start of the academic year in my constituency of Edinburgh Pentlands. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline when young people in the Wester Hailes area will have the opportunity to benefit from the new Wester Hailes High School, which is currently under construction?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I thank Mr MacDonald for his question. I very much look forward to attending the official opening of Curry Community High School, which I think is in November. To the substantive point, as I understand it, the redevelopment of Wester Hailes High School is underway, with completion expected in autumn of 2026. And as I mentioned in my previous response, through the Learning Estate and Investment Programme, the Government will also provide further funding to the City of Edinburgh Council, with significant funding of £16.8 million for this ambitious transformation, which will create lasting benefits for young people and the wider community.
Thank you. I've got a number of supplementaries. I'll get in as many as I can. First, Douglas Ross.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will know the very welcome funding that's gone from the Scottish Government to Murray Council for a replacement Forest Academy. However, there are significant concerns about the siting of that new school. Can the Cabinet Secretary just confirm that the money has been allocated to Murray Council and it is a local decision? Should they decide to move to an alternative venue, it would not put the funding under threat?
Cabinet Secretary.
I understand the challenges in relation to the new high school in Forres. I'm more than happy to write to the member on the specifics. As I understand it, matters around about the situation regarding the location would be a matter for the local authority, but I will write to the member to give him that specific answer in due course.
Pam Duncan-Glancy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In Glasgow, a group of primary pupils are campaigning because their school is not accessible for people who use wheelchairs and their outdoor shelter is deemed unsafe. In light of data this week which showed over 100 schools have not had their expected 5-year suitability survey, which includes suitability under the Equality Act and Access, can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, when will every school have one, and will she ensure the necessary investment and support working with the Council to make sure that schools in Glasgow are accessible and their playground shelters safe?
Cabinet Secretary.
So as I understand it, the matter that the member has raised today would be a matter for Glasgow City Council as the local authority in the first instance. But she raises a hugely important point in relation to accessibility. I'm more than happy to ask my officials to engage with Glasgow City Council on the specifics of her question today and to come back to the member in due course.
Thank you. Sue Webber.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As the former councillor that campaigned and fought alongside the community, I can report that the new facilities in Curry are quite special. But the campus is far from complete, Cabinet Secretary. Following the demolition of the old building, the ambitious plans to create outdoor learning spaces and first-class sports facilities are under threat. Will the Cabinet Secretary meet with me and parents to understand the need for the ambitious campus to be delivered as promised, following the successful community campaign to keep both Curry and Wester Hailes High Schools in the heart of their respective communities?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think Ms Webber raises an important point. I'm more than happy to meet with her and campaigners. We have provided, of course, the City of Edinburgh Council with significant funding to fund both schools. And, of course, I think that totals £64 million towards the construction since 2021 of 4 new schools. But I'm more than happy to meet with the member in relation to the points she's made today and with campaigners additionally.
Thank you. Question 2, Emma Rodder.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government for what reason the Children Withdrawal from Religious Education and Amendment of UNCRC Compatibility Duty Scotland Bill aims to give school pupils an independent right to opt in, but not opt out of religious observance.
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for her question. The bill in its current form will strengthen the rights of children and young people in Scotland, building on our commitment to the UNCRC. The changes aim to strike a balance between this, parental rights, and also the wider range of stakeholder views which exist, and of course the practicality of implementing the changes for schools. This approach, though, represents a very clear improvement on the consideration of children and young people's views on withdrawal from religious observance. And in accordance with the current guidance, schools should already take an inclusive approach to religious observance, reflecting the diversity of faith and belief in the school community.
Emma Roddick.
Officer, there's a fundamental inequality here. While the bill gives school pupils the right to overrule their parents to opt into religious observance, non-religious children will still need parental permission to opt out. This creates a hierarchy of belief, with the views of religious pupils taken more seriously than those of non-religious children and young people. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary why that is, and will she address this worrying bias, or are religious children's views officially more valid than those who do not hold those beliefs?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I thank the member for her question. I don't agree with the substantive final point of her question. However, I'm more than happy to engage with the member on this point. I think my private office today have reached out to all members of the Equalities Committee who will be considering this bill in due course to offer engagement with them directly. I met with the Humanist Society only last week to hear some of the points the member has raised today. The point I made in my initial response is it's important for the Government to strike a balance in relation to the rights of parents and the rights of children and young people, and we need to be mindful of that balance and it potentially becoming out of kilter. But the aim of the bill itself is to ensure that in the context of that long-standing parental right to withdraw their child, children and young people's views are also given due weight in that process. And I think that is the substantive point the member was making. And the provisions in the draft bill do reflect that aim. This is a technical bill that really aims to strengthen the alignment that we have with the UNCRC, and will put that position in relation to Ministers' UNCRC obligations in this area beyond doubt. But as I say, Presiding Officer, I'm more than happy to meet with members, and of course the committee will be considering the bill in due course.
Question 7, Eleanor Whittam.
To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the recently published report by Humanist Society Scotland, Preaching is Not Teaching, regarding concerns that pupils in non-denominational schools may feel compelled to take part in religious worship activities against their own wishes.
Cabinet Secretary.
The Scottish Government welcomes the Humanist Society report, which helpfully adds to the literature regarding current practice of religious observance, or RO, and the right of parents to withdraw pupils from it. Evidence shows how inclusive and pluralistic religious observance can support all pupils' spiritual and moral development. And I met with the Humanist Society last week and have asked them to share further information on their examples of RO not being delivered inclusively. Guidance is clear that religious observance should be inclusive for all of those faiths and none.
Eleanor Whittam.
Presiding Officer, and I refer to my register of interest as a member of Humanist Society Scotland. Given that over 70% of Scottish pupils now identify as non-religious or with non-Christian beliefs, I'm deeply concerned that non-denominational schools are still able to deliver an exclusively Christian programme of religious observance. In the report, one parent explained that their child was pressured to pray out loud and reprimanded for choosing to stay quiet, leaving her distressed and ashamed. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that this represents a clear failure to respect a child's right to their own beliefs, a fundamental human right protected under the UNCRC, and that pupils should be given the ability to independently opt out of religious observance?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for her question. I too am concerned by some of the issues that have been raised in the Humanist Society report. I discussed those with the Humanist Society, as I mentioned previously last week. I have, as I said earlier, asked the Humanist Society if they can share further information on those reports or examples that the member has cited today, to look at if there is more that can be done to ensure religious observance is delivered inclusively in all schools. Now, the experience of the young person that's been mentioned in the question does not sound consistent at all with the guidance that religious observance in schools should be sensitive to all spiritual needs and beliefs and be inclusive for those of all faiths and none. And I'd be happy for the member to write to me with further details, but as I have previously committed, I've asked the Humanist Society for further detail in relation to that matter. But the Scottish Government, as I mentioned, have engaged with a wide range of stakeholders on the bill proposals, and I'll continue to engage with members as the bill makes its way through Parliament.
Thank you. Question 3, Richard Leonard.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what interventions it has made to end the current dispute over jobs and cuts in the higher education sector.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, while universities are autonomous institutions with responsibility for their own operational and staffing matters, I have continued to encourage university leaders to engage constructively with trade unions and seek resolution to local disputes in line with fair work principles. This should include meaningful staff consultation on the potential impact of their cost-saving programmes and working together with staff and trade unions to ensure workers are treated fairly. And compulsory redundancies should only be considered as a last resort after all other cost-saving measures have been fully explored.
Richard Leonard.
Can I thank the Minister for that reply? The University of Edinburgh is our largest university and one of the most prestigious. It's currently in dispute with the University and College Union over job losses and a failure to rule out compulsory redundancies. UCU members took strike action on Friday the 20th of June and a further 5 days from the 8th of September. And so while senior managers held dispute resolution talks with UCU on the 12th of June, ahead of the first strike day, and met with the joint unions on the 24th of July, but since then it has made no effort to meet with the UCU and is instead moving ahead with job cuts through so-called targeted voluntary redundancy. So how does the Minister believe this fits with the Scottish Government's Fair Work First principles and the Fair Work dimensions of effective voice, security and respect?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I've already outlined what our expectations are around these matters. Richard Leonard paints a picture, a very specific interpretation of what's happening in Edinburgh University. He'll appreciate that I'm not fully cited on the detail that he has outlined. What I will undertake to do, however, through the SFC is to seek to explore the very points he's made, and I will come back to the member on that.
Briefly, Willie Rennie.
The signs of stress in the higher education system are clear, as has been set out by Richard Leonard. Does the Minister accept that the current financial model for higher education is broken? And will he set out what discussions he's had with University of Scotland and others about a potential new financial model?
Minister.
I thank Willie Rennie for that question. As he's aware, there have been ongoing discussions with the sector about that very point, looking to a more sustainable long-term financial model. In fact, I would hope that we'll be able to make a joint announcement in the next few weeks. We'll outline the detail of that. I also offer a reassurance that perhaps goes to the kind of concerns that Richard Leonard has articulated, that whatever process that follows, whatever the direction of travel, that trade unions, staff and students will also be able to input to that process, because I absolutely recognise that we do need to move to a more sustainable long-term model for our institutions.
Question 4, Oliver Mundell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what steps it's taking to ensure that pupils attending smaller rural schools are receiving the additional support needs for learning that they deserve.
Cabinet Secretary.
All children and young people should receive the support that they need to reach their full potential. Local authorities oversee the delivery of education and have a statutory duty to identify, provide for and to review and support that they provide for pupils with additional support needs in their local community, including schools in rural areas. Spending on additional support for learning by local authorities has reached a record high of over £1 billion in 23-24, and the 25-26 budget sets out a further £29 million of additional investment by the Scottish Government for ASN.
Oliver Mundell.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Can I ask her, on behalf of parents, pupils and teachers themselves, what are they to do when that doesn't happen? I'm seeing a situation in Dumfries and Galloway where resources are being rationed and where smaller schools are being disadvantaged, often having a learning assistant for a fraction of the week. And as a former teacher, I would hope the Cabinet Secretary would understand the pressure that creates when the support is not there to support the young person at the time they actually need it, which can often be unpredictable.
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for his question. He makes a really substantive point in relation to how we can ensure in government that money that has been protected by this government, essentially, is used at local level to deliver on what we expect it to be. Some of that work is being undertaken through our relationship with COSLA and the Education Assurance Board to make sure the ASN funding gets to classrooms and gets it to those who need it most. The other part I would say in my response, though, is that, of course, the Parliament committed the Government to lead a review on ASN. Colleagues from the Members' Party have been at a round table with myself 2 weeks ago now to agree some of the parameters of what that review will look at. I'm very keen to look at how we can ensure that funding protected in the Government's budget makes its way into the classrooms where it can make the biggest difference. And the final point I would make on that relates to school funding. The member may be aware of an appointment I announced at the start of term in relation to how we fund our schools, school governance and school funding, what comes next in terms of the Scottish Attainment Challenge, the Pupil Equity Fund. So the appointment of John Wilson, who was former formerly a head teacher in Edinburgh. It's a hugely important piece of work in that regard, and we'll look at all of these matters in the round. And I would encourage the member to engage with John Wilson on his independent review of how we fund our schools, because I think there is an opportunity through that work to answer some of the challenge that the member has quite rightly raised today.
Question 5, Martin Whitfield.
Grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with outdoor education centres and schools regarding the financial and staffing implication of the Schools Residential Outdoor Education Scotland Bill.
Minister Natalie Donnan.
The Scottish Government has engaged with stakeholders on our outstanding concerns relating to this Member's Bill around affordability, equity for pupils and for pupils with additional support needs and the workforce. I met with the Association of Heads of Outdoor Education Centres on the 25th of February, COSLA on the 6th of August and trade unions on the 25th of August. Since the introduction of the bill, officials have also engaged the Association of Directors of Education in Scotland and the National Complex Needs Network. I'll confirm to Parliament the Government's position on the financial resolution for this bill by the 26th of September.
Martin Whitfield.
I'm grateful to the Minister for that response and the meetings that were in February and August. But government is about choice. Parliament is the people's voice of account. The use by government of process instead of choice is disappointing. So what explanation can the Minister give as to why process over bringing a motion instead of debate on a financial memorandum where meetings were held in February and August, fed into by all of the outreach that she's just spoken of, was chosen?
Minister.
As I have confirmed both the members' debate last week and committee sessions last week, and I would actually say I think that the question by Mr Whitfield presupposes the outcome of a government decision on the financial resolution. And I would remind the Parliament that the financial resolution is a legitimate and important process that ensures that ministers can exercise our unique responsibility and accountability for appropriate management of the Scottish budget. It is not a process that is unique to the Scottish Government. For example, the Welsh Government, UK Government and Northern Ireland administrations have a very similar process.
Liz Smith.
I'm very much looking forward to meeting the Cabinet Secretary and the Minister later this afternoon about the bill. But can I just ask, in relation to discussions with the outdoor education sector, what information have you received back as a Scottish Government about my proposals to reduce the cost of the bill?
Minister.
I think I've said before, so I may not have discussed those exact proposals with the outdoor education sector due to the timing around those meetings. However, I have confirmed to Ms Smith that the proposals you have put forward to reduce some of the implications of the bill around affordability, around readiness, are very welcome and are helping to inform the decision around the financial resolution.
Always through the Chair. And Fulton McGregor.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. I wonder if the Minister can outline how the Scottish Government is supporting the delivery of outdoor learning in schools across Scotland just now.
Minister.
So I thank Mr McGregor for that question, and I actually think this has been a very good opportunity to discuss and highlight the level of outdoor education already happening in Scotland. Outdoor education is, of course, an area of government focus through our 2023 Learning for Sustainability Action Plan and in reform through the Curriculum Improvement Cycle. We continue to support investment in outdoor learning through the Scottish Attainment Challenge, through the Pupil Equity Funding and Phase 3 of our Learning Estate Investment Programme. Now, collaboration with stakeholders is ongoing via the Scottish Outdoor Learning Strategic Working Group, and that is due to report recommendations to ministers later this year.
Okay, question 6, Rachel Hamilton.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on its ongoing review of the guidance on the mothballing of nurseries.
Minister Natalie Donnan.
So, Scottish ministers have committed to updating the advice to local authorities on mothballing contained within the statutory guidance for the Schools Consultation Scotland Act 2010. Scottish Government officials continue to engage with local authorities, parent representatives and other stakeholders as part of this work, and we aim to provide an update to Parliament as soon as possible during the autumn term. While the review is underway, the existing guidance on mothballing remains in place. Of course, decisions relating to the learning estate, including nurseries, are the responsibility of local authorities.
Rachel Hamilton.
I thank the Minister for that answer, and I'm pleased to hear that there will be an update in this term. However, I believe that under the guidance from the SNP Government, nurseries in rural areas are under threat, and parents in the Scottish borders have legitimate concerns about the process and guidance of the government's mothballing process. So Does the Minister agree that to address these concerns, any proposals right now to mothball nurseries must be paused until the Government has published the guidance? And it seems apparent that the review on mothballing will find that it's entirely inappropriate action for local authorities to take if the written answers are anything to go by. Thank you.
Minister.
I think that, as I've said, local decisions are for local authorities. However, any decisions which are going to impact on that provision should be made in consultation with local communities, with affected parents and families. Now, I've been clear that the mothballing guidance remains in place. We will provide an update on that review in the autumn, which I think will take the appropriate steps that will help to make this process clearer, more effective for parents. But of course, we need to remember that mothballing is an important process for local authorities to manage their learning estate. So there's a balance that has to be struck there. But I'm happy to provide that update to Parliament in autumn on that review of the guidance, as I have stated.
Thank you. Question 8, Megan Gallagher.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on any steps it is taking to expand the availability of training and apprenticeships in the construction sector in light of reported industry concerns about a growing skills gap.
Mr Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government is committed to addressing skills gaps in the construction sector. As the member may know, we are introducing a new government-led approach to skills planning to better meet the needs of individuals and employers and the economy. Additionally, however, the Scottish Funding Council is leading a short-life stakeholder group to better understand industry needs and identify areas for action. In parallel, a ministerial chair construction leadership forum working group is exploring measures to support the sector. These efforts are part of a broader commitment to creating a more responsive and effective system of workforce development in construction.
Megan Gallagher.
I thank the Minister for his response. The Minister will be aware that we are in a housing emergency. We have a shortage of homes and we need the skills in order to build those homes right across the country. The Minister referenced the Scottish Government's own skills investment plan for construction, yet the warning signs about an ageing workforce, declining numbers in key trades and the urgent need to attract young people through schools and apprenticeships were there years ago. So can I ask the Minister how he plans to speed up the process in terms of trying to get young people into the construction industry, making it a viable workforce and making it, of course, an area where young people feel confident that their jobs will be there for life?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, the short-life working group that I referenced has come out as a result of a round table I convened recently involving CITB, colleges, SFC, SQA, SDS and the Careers Collaborative to explore how we can deliver short, medium and long-term solutions to this issue. And I very much welcome the measured and constructive approach from the Federation of Master Builders and the Chartered Institute of Building, especially the recognition that in order to resolve the challenges that Megan Gallagher highlights, they need to work closer with government and training providers. And I want to advise the Chamber that my officials have invited the FMB onto that short-life working group because they clearly want to find solutions of the type that Megan Gallagher alludes to. As I've said before, this is about trying to deal with the immediate term where Brexit, amongst other things, has had a detrimental impact on workforce availability. But also the medium to longer term, and front and centre of that is unpacking a situation where thousands of young people each year enter and in large numbers pass construction courses of varying types in our colleges, but only circa 15% go on to work in the sector. We need to get to the bottom of that, and I hope that gives Megan Gallagher a degree of reassurance about how seriously we treat this.
Minister, I've got a number of members wanting to get supplementaries. I doubt I'll get through all of them, but I'll do my best. First, Gordon MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I've supported the construction skills demonstrations delivered by the Scottish Traditional Building Forum since 2013 and welcome this construction pathway, including the delivery of a NAT5 Creative Industries piloted at Wester Hailes High School. The NAT5 created a parity of equity with academic qualifications, so I welcome that it has expanded this academic year to include Currie High School.
Question.
Would the Minister consider meeting with the Scottish Traditional Building Forum to discuss a long-term and sustainable model for delivery to help young people across Scotland benefit from this opportunity?
Minister.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to call Carol Mochan, who joins us remotely.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In June, I hosted a parliamentary reception for the National Federation of Roofing Contractors, which was well supported by MSPs across the chamber. Speakers at the event highlighted the personal challenges in getting to college for training purposes when apprentices. I raised this with the Minister before. In my South of Scotland region, there are some apprentices forced to complete a 4-hour daily commute to undertake college-based training. I wonder, does the Minister think this is acceptable and equitable, and what can be done?
Minister.
I'm well aware of the instance that Carol Mockin refers to. What I say to Carol Mockin is my conversations with CITB, and they've been very receptive to this, there is a recognition that we need to get smaller employers to come together to be able to assure individual training providers, whether it be colleges or private sector, that they can provide a critical mass of students in a locality and thereafter a pipeline of students. If they do that, I know the colleges are willing to consider running courses in more places, but we do need both of these things to come together.
Please, Stephen Kerr.
What role will construction employers have in setting the number of apprentices, especially in the light of the Withers recommendations?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, employers have input, of course they do, but they don't set the number of apprenticeships. That would be entirely inappropriate. They can have an input to it. But just for Stephen Kerr's understanding, 25.6% of the apprentices that were allocated in Scotland in 24-25 went to the construction and related occupational grouping. So there are a large number of apprentices already allocated there. And I don't doubt for one moment that if we were to increase that number, which we may well do in future, Stephen Kerr would be back in this chamber, if he's re-elected, calling for more apprentices in other sectors. But I do think the numbers point to the fact that we recognise, very much recognise, the importance of construction.
Thank you. And with apologies to those I wasn't able to call, that concludes portfolio questions. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.